There comes a point when you stop asking whether something is changing and begin asking whether you have already changed. The difference between those questions is subtle, but it alters everything. The first assumes transformation belongs somewhere in the future. The second quietly admits that the future may have arrived long before you noticed it. For a long time, I believed awareness always arrived before change. I thought people recognized the moment their thinking shifted. I imagined that understanding announced itself clearly enough to be observed while it was happening. It doesn't. Most of the deepest changes happen beneath the surface of conscious thought. They rearrange priorities before they rearrange opinions. They soften reactions before they reshape beliefs. By the time the mind begins searching for explanations, the quieter parts of us have already begun living according to a new understanding. That realization stayed with me, not because it answered anything. Because it removed my confidence that every important experience could be explained immediately. I've always admired clarity, not certainty. Those are different things. Certainty often closes the door too quickly. It reaches a conclusion because remaining uncertain feels uncomfortable. Clarity has no such urgency. It waits. It allows incomplete pieces to remain incomplete until they naturally reveal where they belong. I didn't appreciate that distinction until recently. There was a time when I believed every unanswered question represented a problem waiting to be solved. Now I suspect some questions exist to reshape the person asking them. Perhaps their purpose was never information. Perhaps it was transformation. That possibility changed the way I approach my own thoughts. Instead of demanding explanations, I began observing them. Instead of asking, "What does this mean?" I found myself asking, "Why does this continue to return?" The questions we cannot dismiss often reveal more than the answers we eagerly collect. Some thoughts disappear the moment they're examined. Others become clearer every time they return. The second kind deserves attention. I noticed something else as well. My relationship with silence had changed. Silence used to feel like an empty space between conversations. Now it felt like part of the conversation itself, not because hidden messages existed there, because attention existed there. People often assume communication depends entirely upon words. I no longer believe that words explain, presence reveals. The two aren't always connected. Someone can speak endlessly without revealing anything genuine. Someone else can say almost nothing while leaving you with the unmistakable feeling that something important has just occurred. I've experienced both. Only one continues echoing after the conversation ends. Perhaps that's because genuine presence doesn't depend upon performance. It isn't created by carefully chosen language or perfectly constructed ideas. It appears when someone has no interest in proving themselves, when they no longer need to control how they're perceived. There is a remarkable calmness in people who have stopped performing their own identity. Being around them changes something almost imperceptibly, not because they convince you. Because they quietly remind you that you don't have to convince anyone either. That realization felt unexpectedly freeing. I hadn't realized how much energy I had spent organizing my thoughts into forms other people could easily understand. Not hiding them, simply arranging them, making them smaller, more manageable. Less complicated. Somewhere along the way I had mistaken simplicity for honesty. They aren't always the same. Sometimes honesty refuses to become simple. Reality is rarely obligated to fit inside comfortable language. The more closely I observed life, the more often I encountered contradictions that existed peacefully beside one another, strength and gentleness, confidence and uncertainty, distance and closeness, freedom and commitment. I used to think choosing one required abandoning the other. Now I'm beginning to suspect maturity means carrying both without demanding they become identical. Life seems less interested in eliminating paradox than we are. Perhaps wisdom isn't solving contradiction. Perhaps it's learning to remain present inside it. That thought followed me for weeks. Not because it was especially profound. Because it felt strangely practical. Every meaningful relationship I've ever valued contained contradictions. People who challenged me also brought me peace. Conversations that left me uncertain also left me clearer. Moments of stillness often carried more movement than moments filled with activity. Nothing fit the categories I once trusted. At first that unsettled me. Eventually it became strangely comforting. The world hadn't become more complicated. It had simply become more honest. I started paying attention to the assumptions I carried without realizing it. How often had I confused familiarity with truth? How many opinions had become permanent simply because they had remained unchallenged long enough? The mind enjoys efficiency. Once it creates a pattern, it prefers repeating it. Patterns make life manageable, but they can also make life invisible. When everything is interpreted through yesterday's conclusions, today never receives the chance to reveal anything new. I didn't want that. I wanted to remain capable of surprise, not dramatic surprise, quiet surprise. The kind that slowly expands your understanding instead of interrupting it. Looking back, I think that's exactly what had been happening all along. Nothing interrupted my life, nothing demanded immediate attention. Instead, awareness widened so gradually that I could continue living my ordinary routines without realizing they were unfolding beneath a different sky. The routine stayed the same. The person experiencing them did not. That distinction matters. People often wait for external events before acknowledging internal growth. A new job, a new city, a relationship, a loss, a beginning, an ending. Those moments certainly shape us, but some of our deepest changes arrive without any visible milestone. You wake one morning and discover your priorities have quietly rearranged themselves, not overnight, over countless unnoticed moments that finally became impossible to ignore. I think we underestimate those moments because they don't create stories people can easily tell. No dramatic turning point, no unforgettable scene, only a slow accumulation of honest observations. Yet those observations eventually become the foundation upon which every later decision quietly rests. I've started believing that identity is less like a statue and more like a landscape. A statue appears finished. A landscape never is. Seasons alter it. Light transforms it. Rain reshapes it. Nothing violent is required. Time alone is enough. Perhaps people are the same. We aren't rebuilt all at once. We are continuously revised by experiences too subtle to announce themselves. Some revisions are so gentle we mistake them for permanence. Until one ordinary afternoon we hear ourselves speak and realize the voice carries a perspective we didn't possess a year ago. Where did it come from? There is rarely a single answer. It arrived through accumulated attention, one observation at a time, one conversation at a time, one moment of quiet recognition after another. Perhaps that's why gratitude has begun feeling different. It no longer depends on extraordinary experiences. Instead, it appears during ordinary ones, a thoughtful pause, a patient listener, an honest question, a shared silence. The small moments I once hurried past have gradually become the ones I trust most. Maybe significance was never hiding inside exceptional events. Maybe it was quietly waiting inside ordinary ones until I learn how to notice. That possibility has changed the way I move through each day. Less urgency, more attention, less need to arrive somewhere, more willingness to remain present where I already am. Oddly enough, that has made life feel larger instead of smaller. Presence expands experience in ways ambition never can. Ambition always points toward tomorrow. Presence allows today to become fully visible. For years I believed those two existed in opposition. Now I see they can strengthen each other. A meaningful future is built by someone capable of fully inhabiting the present. Without that, tomorrow simply becomes another place where attention never arrives. Maybe that's the lesson I was slowly learning all along. Not how to predict the future, not how to define every connection, not even how to understand every change, simply how to remain honest enough to notice them while they quietly reshape the person I am becoming. And perhaps that is its own kind of clarity, not the kind that ends every question, the kind that teaches you which questions are worth carrying a little longer.